It may be unclear why the men of Numenor despise elves in The Lord of the Rings of Power, but Tolkien's lore, as always, may fill in the contextual gaps. Menorian hate of elves grew throughout time as a result of jealousy of their immortality in the Rings of Power. Tolkien describes Numenor's demise in the Silmarillion as a gradual burn that began with the ban of Valar. Here's what we know so far. To begin, Rings of Power explains why nobody likes the elves of Middle-earth. There are many clear indicators of tension between the resident races of Middle-earth across many films and novels of the Tolkienverse. Maybe none so more than between the elves and pretty much everyone else. After reading The Rings of Power, a Tolkien-inspired trilogy, there may be a simple reason for this. When each character in the story meets Galadriel of Elrond, the hatred between the elves and other races is clear. When Galadriel is rescued initially on a raft at sea, it is only after learning of her elf heritage that the shipwrecked crew goes from skeptical to entirely distrustful. Elrond and Durin IV may be close friends, but it is evident throughout the season that neither of them trusts the other or their clan. For this reason, they frequently keep secrets from each other. When Galadriel arrives in Numenor, she finds nothing but enmity. She is instantly imprisoned and treated in the city as a prisoner, with little faith placed in her or the elf she symbolizes. Such negativity and distrust may appear to be the fault of everyone but the elves, but there may be a definite cause for their antipathy. Some elves have been around since the beginning of time. Their existence influenced the development of Middle-earth, despite their lengthy and renowned existence. Not to mention their immortality and everlasting youth, many of them have become arrogant and stubborn as a people. Moving on, more specifics on why nobody likes the elves in Middle-earth. Many elves perceive themselves as superior beings, with little regard for the other races they are meant to serve, as described by Redditors in the r/LOTR on Prime Thread. Galadriel, for example, is taken aback by the Menorians' bigotry toward her people, but we cannot see the clear disillusionment that Numenor's refusal to obey the elves as a longing for freedom against them. The Nemorians and elves have far more in common than either would want to admit. Other examples of the program include the elvish garrison at the Southlands, who are ready to abandon the human race. Their purpose for guarding the Southlanders is most likely to punish them for atrocities perpetrated by their people ages ago. Finally, the dwarves discovered the existence of Mithril. The elves wanted almost immediately to maintain their presence in Middle-earth. Otherwise, we believe that the remaining elves, like everyone else, will perish, an idea unfathomable to the likes of Gil-galad. The elves of Middle-earth are deeply ingrained in the creation of the continent. On the other hand, their greedy, selfish, and arrogant mentality has not served them well in forming relationships with the rest of the people. Given the events of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, we know that these conflicts persist well into the story's future. Even Legolas and Gimli's bromance didn't begin on the best of terms. However, Galadriel and her people will certainly have to change their tune in the following seasons of the show. Following that, Galadriel needs to be taken down a peg in The Rings of Power Season 2. Now that the first season of The Rings of Power has concluded, many of its viewers are reaching general conclusions about what the show did very well and the components of the series that need to be improved. Since the series premiered in September, no one has garnered as much criticism as one of its primary characters, Galadriel. Viewers weigh how Galadriel should improve as a character in the upcoming season, and they're not backing down. The Rings of Power threads uploaded by Redditors reveal fans' thoughts about the show. One thread, which examines Galadriel's angry disposition throughout the first season, highlights how they believe the character might improve if she were more like her book counterparts. Galadriel's involvement in the series represents a vengeful warrior who has dedicated herself completely to eliminating her adversary, Sauron, at any cost, even the sacrifice of others. Her arrogance always seems to pay off. I'd want to see her overestimate her powers and be somewhat humiliated for a change. That, or have something happen to her personally that humbles her and makes her act less like a brat and the only clever person in the room in every conversation. This contrasts her personification in the novels, in which she has a much more peaceful demeanor and acts as a protector of her people and others. Next up, more details on Galadriel being taken down a peg. Although some fans believe that seeing Galadriel as a younger version of herself, who has not yet matured into the person she will become, is extremely suitable within the border plot, many people are excited to see her character evolve into a more typical image of herself. Redditors also point out the parallels between Galadriel and Sauron in the series. Both are motivated by their desires. Galadriel comes dangerously near to committing her evil crimes at times, for instance when she nearly kills a defenseless Adar. This may be mirrored in her intimate bond with Halbrand before discovering he was Sauron. This enlightenment may help Galadriel see the folly of her ways in the future, learning to respect the inhabitants of Middle-earth and abandoning her sword in favor of diplomacy. In any case, Galadriel still has a long way to go slow before she becomes the version of the figure that fans crave. Amazon perhaps took a risk by incorporating such a well-known heroine in their original series, as Galadriel's journey faces enormous expectations. The Rings of Power will supposedly last 5 seasons, culminating in Sauron's initial defeat. Galadriel has plenty of times to find her feet as a character. It all depends on whether or not the writers of Season 2 listen to her most devoted admirers. Moving on, what the unseen realm means in the Rings of Power. The first widespread mistake about the unseen is that it is not a literal location to which one may travel. Rather, it is another dimension that runs parallel to the real Middle-earth. It's similar to a spirit realm where angels, demons, and ghosts live. When hobbits like Frodo and Bilbo, who the One Ring hasn't entirely corrupted, put it on, they shift into the unseen realm and are no longer visible in the seen realm. Despite this, they are nevertheless present in Middle-earth, influencing and being influenced by happenings in the seen realm. For example, while wearing the ring and being in the unseen, Frodo has a finger bitten off by Gollum at the end of The Return of the King. Rings of Strength has yet to show anyone in the unseen realm, although the power of the domain has been demonstrated by the mystics who pursue the stranger. The mystics can summon fire from the unseen to burn the Harfoots camp. They may also modify their appearance and masquerade themselves as other people, though their eyes give them away. It's also possible that when the mystics turn into ghosts, they didn't die, but instead joined the unseen realm as phantoms of their former selves. If this is the case, they may still appear in Rings of Power Season 2. Following that, repeating LOTR dialogue is a key strategy for Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings of Power, has astonished spectators and actors alike with stunning writing that has well maintained Sauron's concealment throughout the various stages of development. Clarke stated that it was frustrating and thrilling, and sort of agonizing to play the character while knowing the dreadful reality. Arondir, actor Ishmael Cruz Cordova, recently teased how he could humorously foresee the show's Sauron twist far before anyone else was told. While referencing Galadriel's words to Frodo from The Lord of the Rings, the show's writers have upped their game in the world of franchises, demonstrating solid script building technique and an ability to keep audiences talking about the franchise as a whole as much as the series itself. The Lord of the Rings of Power, has demonstrated that any franchise success is dependent on the perception it leaves on the masses. And with audiences now twisted to know not everything as it seems, it will be interesting to see how Payne and McKay look to keep audiences in the dark heading into Season 2. Given that the Sauron reveal was not meant to be a great surprise, and Vickers teased a specific strategy for the character heading forward, it appears likely that the surprises will come in the manner of story events rather than dramatic twists. In the interim, fans can watch The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 1 on Amazon Prime Video to find further hints about Sauron's unveiling. Well, that marks the end of our video for today. We hope you enjoyed it. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching.